We're the Hidradenitis Suppuradivas. If you've got HS, you'll want to meet us. It's not your fault, put the shame to a halt. HS divas know how to have a ball. The Hidradenitis Suppuradivas. Put the shame to a halt, cause it's not.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the Hidradenitis Suppuradivas. Cyd and I are so excited to be with Cristina Curp today. Chef extraordinaire and all-around good person, advocate, absolutely adore her. So Cristina, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
One of the things we wanted to talk about is, first of all, we're working on, within HS Connect anyway, changing the word diet to nutrition. Which, I mean, tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think it's smart because a lot of people think diet and they immediately think like weight loss diet, restrictive diet, because we although diet means just what you eat, regardless of what you eat, everyone has a diet. I as someone who was a lifelong yo-yo dieter, negative relationship with food dieter, that word still has that like weight to it that's very triggering. So nutrition, and really it is nutrient density and knowing more about nutrition, which is the key, right, to having diet play a role in your HS, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're totally right when you talk about that, like there's a negative connotation with the word diet. It doesn't evoke any good feelings. It evokes a feeling of dread and restriction and unhappiness and, like seeking something that is unattainable for what feels like most people. Right. So when we were talking about that, I was like, we need to just switch the way we talk about it. Because like you said, truly it is what you eat, and that is like what the whole point of the word is, but it has so much negative connotation with it that it like means something entirely different now than that. And it feels so much lighter when you say that, like, to talk about nutrition.
Yeah,
for sure.
And he's like, what's your diet like? I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
But if you ask somebody like, where do you feel your nutritional value is in the food that you're eating, I feel like that would make me want to have a different conversation and even make me be honest, because I'd be like, you know what? I don't know what kind of nutritional value M&M's is bringing to my life. I don't know,
Yeah, peanuts have protein, so there's that.
Yeah. Hey, and that's our face.
Listen, exactly. Girl, peanut M&Ms are my favorite too. I used to, like, when I was doing, I go to the movie theater, it was like I must have, and I'm a weirdo because I bite it and then open it in half and then eat the peanut and then eat the chocolate because I'm crazy. So that's how I eat peanut.
I love it because there's only so many M&Ms that don't have the peanut in them.
Right.
It's a miracle M&M.
Yeah.
It's very rare. Yeah, you'll bite into a peanut M&M every blue moon, and it won't have peanut in there, and it'll just be extra chocolate, and it's just great. But that's why
like,
some people
today's
eat
gonna
it.
be a good jam day.
Big container over here. But I resonated so much with that because I know there's a lot of people who won't share their diet or nutritional, insights that what they're doing with their food because the shame that's attached to it, especially in the HS community. A lot of people are hesitant to share even their scars, their flares that they're going through right now, because some of the first commentary people have is, oh, well, it's what you're eating. You need to be eating this, and this. And so, Cristina, as somebody who has put your HS in remission for a long time by switching what you're eating, what advice do you have for those who are just starting that journey?
Yeah, that it's going to look different for everybody. And, it's funny because people ask me all the time what I eat and they hate my answer, which is often like, what I eat is irrelevant to you because my diet, how I eat to get into remission is going to look different for everybody. And people have a hard time with that because people really like things to be ABC, 1, 2, 3. Yes. Here's the answer. Here's the fully digested, and that's just not how anything with health or nutrition is. Everything's complicated and bio-individual, and it's a moving target and it changes. And people really want to help in the HS community, but I'm sure this happens even with topical support or with medication. Oh, spironolactone works for me. Everyone's got to do it. Or this works for me, so everyone's got to do it. And diet is the same way, not the same thing, the same treatment, the same nutrition, like treatment, let's say. You have to treat it the same way as a medication. Everyone's going to have a different secret sauce, right? And that's one of the important things to remember, that you're going to have to try a few things. Just because the first dietary change you make doesn't work doesn't mean that it's not going to work. Just because it worked for Susie doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And And I always tell people, look at the bigger picture, because I think we hyper focus on our skin. And HS is a like systemic inflammatory issue. So if you're changing your diet and expecting your skin to improve within days or weeks, girl, like baby, buckle in, because it's so many other things, right? It's going to be your digestion improves, or maybe your mental clarity, or maybe your energy levels, or maybe your poop looks better. I don't know, like little things like that, which will change first before you'll start to notice it in your skin. Like your skin's the last thing to get the memo. So that's the one. That's I guess the first thing is have patience, and start food journaling before you even make a change. Just start writing down what you're eating and how you're feeling. Most of us are way too disconnected from our bodies to even know where to start making change, or if we did make changes, would we even notice the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we see a lot of people in the community. I think you hit the nail on the head for me when you said, like, everyone is different. But I think some of the times that messages get conveyed by HS, patients is, this worked for me, it's going to work for you.
It's not true.
And
Right.
there's one thing to share your personal story and say, like, this is what worked for me, but to tell other people to do the same, I feel like, I don't want to say it's dangerous, but I feel like that there is a little bit of danger attached to it, honestly, because it sets some kind of false pretense in someone's head that because this worked for other people, it's going to work for them. And as
Right.
we know, with HS, there's a lot of disappointments along the way. So setting up for just another disappointment, I feel like, depending on where someone is in their mental health as well, can actually be a dangerous thing. So
100%.
sharing stories about and telling other people what worked for you is complete. That's great. We need people to do that. Because it spawns ideas often for other people about what they could potentially try, but it becomes that dangerous slippery slope when we talk about, you need to try this. Like, you don't need to tell other people what to do.
Yeah.
And like, let's keep it back to just your personal journey. And I think, food is the easiest thing for people to go to when they first have HS, right? It's the number one thing that's talked about, as far as things you can do to potentially help control your HS. But I also think it's important for people to know that for some, food isn't necessarily a trigger.
Right.
So it isn't a one size fits all for everyone. And I get why people hate your answer, because just like HS, it's different for everyone. Everything is. It's like, why can't there just be a book that says, try this, do this, try this, and it'll work? Because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist. And people get really frustrated with that. And it's just about the language you use, even just the simple thing of saying, you have to eat less sugar, to eating less sugar helped me because I was insulin resistant. So I mean, if you're insulin resistant, maybe that's something people just, it's just a quick change of vernacular that really makes a difference. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about diet or medication or topical solutions. It's very subtle language changes that goes from this is going to work to, hey, this is an option, or maybe you could try this, or this works for me. That I'm not saying it's going to work for you. But I think one of the biggest things where people go wrong with starting diet is not understanding why they're even changing their diet, right? People just go straight to restriction and not understanding the how or the whys behind what they're doing, which is where we often end up with then over restriction, confusion, frustration, not, disappointment. And you're right, Brinley, the disappointment is dangerous because there is so much disappointment with HS already. There is so much that people try so much. Every one of us, we've gone through a million different treatment options, a million different topical things, a million different things to just flare again and flare again and flare again. And so I tell people, right, if you're, you can, the false hope is dangerous. I agree. And I get people come to me hopeless a lot. And it's sad because they tell me they've tried everything. And I'm like, it's not that you were wrong in what you were trying. It just, I don't know if people understand what they're trying to accomplish when they're changing their diet. And so I always like tell people, work with your doctors, like get a metabolic panel. Are you insulin resistant? Do you have like a high fasting glucose? Do you have high androgens? What is going on? Your labs can tell you a lot about where to like focus your dietary changes.
Yeah. And I think working with a professional, so like a nutritionist, or working with someone like you who can like take those things and develop a plan. Yeah. Because I think the other thing that comes, and I can speak from my own personal experience, I can't even countless times, right? Of, okay, I'm going to change the way I'm eating. And then I decide I'm going to be eat keto or whatever. And it's just not sustainable for me. Like it just isn't. And then 1 week of not prepping and the whole thing is down the shitter, and it's like, then there's a disappointment in that. And then I failed at this. Now I'm not doing enough to help myself and my HS, when really, do I even know if it was going to help anyway? So I think there's another piece of that psyche that comes in with that failure piece, especially when you come out of the gate and you're like, oh, I'm going to eat caveman. Like, hey, can you afford it? Like, let's talk about the logistics of this.
Yeah.
Do you want to buy a half a beef and put it in half a cow and put it in your freezer? Like, what does that look like logistically? And if you have a family,
Right.
how do you
And your needs
manage?
start becoming very different
Yeah.
because I went through that. I went like, let's just throw everything away because somebody told me that it was my diet. It's just like, okay, well, let's eliminate. And I did like educate myself along the way. But even that could be really dangerous because you start learning about all of these ingredients and all this toxic stuff and it gets overwhelming. And you're like, how are they even selling this in the stores?
Then
So
you're
you
mad
throw
at the
everything in,
FDA.
yeah, and you're trying to place the blame game because you're like, wait, this isn't even a me problem. Like you're selling it to me, right? So then it's like cleaning out your fridge and going to Whole Foods and you don't know what you don't know about that stuff either. And some of it's gross. And I'm a really picky eater. So I'm like, how do I expand my palate to things that I haven't tried before, but even like muster up the courage to go there and buy it and make the dish and try to make it taste good because I don't want to just eat healthy food that tastes nasty.
Yes, you have to enjoy. Food should be an enjoyable process, period. I agree. I think if you don't like what you're eating, it's not going to be good for you anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're like, while you're trying to get something down, like you're not going to digest that well, like for
I'm
sure.
like,
And
no, please no.
yeah,
Please no.
and it is interesting because I think I definitely went through that too, Sid. Like there came a point where I got angry at everybody and the system and everybody and their mothers of like, you've literally been poisoning me my whole life. And why do I have to be on the freaking offensive just to survive? Like
Yeah.
it shouldn't have to be this hard. And it can get a little frustrating. And there's a healthy dose of that, which I think is like valid, especially like with the industrialization of the food system, which is unfortunate when you learn about it. Like in my nutrition program, we learned a lot about it, and I was kind of like, like, meh. But like, am I a homesteader? No. Like I live, I don't have, I'm not gonna I don't have chickens in the backyard, like, or anything like that.
Sorry.
Like I'm not, and I'm not into like the whole raw milk thing. That's gross. I don't drink milk anyway, but I think, pasteurized dairies help, like healthy people. Just, that's a whole thing now. People are into raw dairy and I'm like, but anyway. I know, I'm like, that's a sidetrack. But I agree that you always have to meet people where they are. And I think that like all or nothing is never a good mentality, and I definitely went super extreme for like the part of my life. And there was a point where everything had to be like super controlled, this like super controlled environment, or like it would fall apart and it wasn't sustainable. And I had to find a more sustainable way forward. And what I realize is that, again, going back to a targeted approach, when you know what you're trying to target with nutrition, you don't have to go super restrictive. I went super restrictive. I did balls to the wall, AIP, low carb AIP. Like that's the hardest diet you could think of to get like to figure out my stuff, because at that point I didn't study nutrition at that point, right? I was just figuring stuff out on my own. But now when I work with my clients, we rarely do full elimination diets. Rarely. I don't think I've put like maybe one of most of the time people come to me who already are on AIP and not getting better. And we're adding things back into their diet because AIP alone isn't going to target insulin resistance or candida overgrowth or, different things. So eliminating things can be for naught if you don't know what you're doing, and it can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think you're totally right when you say like starting with a food journal is like where you just have to begin. And it sounds, people want to skip that step
because it could be shameful.
Right.
You're like, I'm a binge eater, so
right.
I don't want to log the
Chick-fil-A,
fact that I ate 6 Chick-fil-A chicken tenders and then I ate 4 of my kids' chicken nuggets because they didn't finish it and I'm not going to let it go to waste. And then I ate a large fry and a Coca-Cola and that was just lunch. So then let's dive into my little midday snack and I had a whole king-size pack of M&Ms and then I went and made dinner and it's the same thing. And it's like that shame writing that down. They're like, screw this, which is dangerous, but you just have to get honest with yourself.
But it's food and mood, so it's not just what you're eating, but how you're feeling. So, for example, I love peanut M&Ms. Like I said, they're my favorite, but I don't have them often because they will make me flare. And it's weird because it's typically the ingredients, like sugar in and of itself won't make me flare, peanuts in and of itself, chocolate. But I think for me, it's too much sugar in one sitting. Like if I eat a whole pack, that much sugar in one sitting will make me flare. So these are things that I learned through journaling and understanding. So if I buy the peanut M&Ms, I'll like buy the smaller bag and just share it with my kid. So I'm not having the whole thing because I still want to have them, but I know that for me the poison can be in the dose, you know? And so like and I think that that's where the beauty comes in. Like I was just talking about we made honey mustard today, and like my client he asked for tastes like McDonald's honey mustard, but I have to make it with like olive oil milk anyway. But it's really good, and it has a ton of honey in it. And I'm like, I can't wait to get home because he's not here, so I'm taking it home with me. And I'm like, I'm gonna make some gluten-free chicken nuggets and have my honey mustard later. I can't wait. And I love me some chicken nuggets, but I do eat gluten-free ones, right? Because I know for me, gluten's like not worth it because it 100% makes me flare and makes me feel like trash for like a week, you know? So that's what the food journal should give you the insight to, not shame over if you ate chicken nuggets or McDonald's or M&Ms, but whether if you ate that, did you feel great? Or if you ate maybe less of it, or when you ate it, could you feel better? Not necessarily that you're taking it out of your diet, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many like layers to this, I think, especially because, for most of us, we have dealt with, going to Weight Watchers at 10 years old, or, Jenny Craig and all of these things at certain points in our lives. So it almost, for me personally, it feels like if I'm going into this, that I'm already setting myself up for failure because I've had so many past failures in this.
Mhm.
And so there's so much emotionality that surrounds nutrition and, like you said, food and mood, honestly.
Right. But it's also disconnecting a diet change with weight loss. And then I know this is a hard one because I also tell people if you have weight loss goals, those are valid. But just because you're going to manage inflammation or balance your hormones or whatever doesn't mean that you're going to lose weight. You know, like my just being in remission, I have weighed 275 pounds and right now I'm at like 195, but like, A, I'm still by the BMI chart obese. And two, like I've never been a skinny person. And there's a part of me that had to just let that go. Like, because I realized that chasing thinness was making me sick. Like I could actually kick myself out of remission chasing thinness. Like my body likes to be here, you know? And so being healthy and managing your inflammation is completely separate from your body size. And I know that's hard to believe because doctors will tell us the opposite.
Yeah, and we're told, at most first visits, right? It is to wait, quit smoking. And I swear to God, they say it even when you've marked I'm not a smoker. Like, and you're like,
or even if you're thin, how many people we know, like Carl was told to lose weight.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Right. And we're doing more, actually more work this year and more studies on eating disorders and HS because I think that there is a huge correlation. And I think that most people with HS that have disordered eating are not even aware of it.
Right.
Because it's been so normalized in the HS community, that it's insane. It's one of the things I tell parents when their children are diagnosed with HS. Don't go to your pantry. Just leave it alone. Give it some time, like have your child start journaling, but it also, that in and of itself, that whole like feeling between parents and kids and the control piece of parents trying to help their kids, it creates some really weird dynamics. And it's important for parents to understand what that looks like if they're trying to control that for their children. And it's your natural inclination to want to help your kids.
Right. But you don't want them to feel like they're broken because they're not. And it's like this thing that like it has to be fixed because it doesn't. It can just be managed and that's okay too. And I agree. I think that it's interesting. You said like don't go to the pantry. So some good advice that I always tell, when people ask me on like TikTok, like, I have a hard time with this, but I want to try something. I also just eat more protein. Like so about 45 to 50% of HS patients have insulin resistance that we know of. And insulin resistance can drive high androgen production and impact the hormones as well. So that is something which is fairly common in our community that I feel confident enough to saying like, And actually, Dr. Jamie Weissman was showing there are some studies of people of like a lot of HS patients come up with markers showing that they're deficient in protein. So eat more protein. So
Mhm.
upping your lean protein. If you, so your kid, instead of taking away your kid's mac and cheese or whatever his bread or whatever he likes, that makes your kid happy, or he or she, like just make them like have more protein. So instead of just the mac and cheese, right? My kid loves the Annie's box mac and cheese. Like he loves, and I make him a gluten free. They make it gluten free, so that's what I buy for him because he doesn't do well with it. But he loves that. But instead of just being like go to town on a pot of mac and cheese, I'll be like, let's have it with some chicken breast. And if I'm lucky, he'll let me throw some green beans or green beans in there. But sometimes there's no vegetables. Sometimes it's just chicken and mac and cheese, and that's fine. But just
multiple moms all over the world. We're like, what's
yeah, exactly. So just doing more so just adding in more protein. Like in the morning, if he wants cereal, I'll be like, cool, let's do cereal, but with 2 eggs on the side or a breakfast sausage. Instead of taking away, just add. Because adding in that protein is going to slow down, like blunt the sugar, the blood sugar response from whatever the carb or the sugary food is, and they can still have it, but then plus they're getting protein, which is building blocks, which is really helpful for a lot of things. So you can oftentimes add instead of take away and have a wonderful response with nutritional changes. Is the opposite of restriction. You're just adding.
Yeah, and I think it's doing it incrementally, like making changes incrementally instead of, like I said, going to the pantry and it's like, especially with kids, it's like sit with your diagnosis for a little bit, learn more about your kid's diagnosis. Don't come home and just decide that food is an issue for them.
Is the enemy, because you're going to make it an enemy, and that's where it starts.
Yeah, absolutely. And just do things incrementally. Slow and steady wins the race, right? And I think just like with so many other things with HS, you have to give it some time. You can't go in and change everything all at once because then you don't know what works and what doesn't.
Works, right.
Yeah. So I think that's also why it's a frustrating thing for people because they expect that in week 1 of deciding they're going to eat caveman or paleo or
and
whatever.
That can be stressful. Doing all that, which can cause more flares, and you're not getting that true, like, was it working, was it not? Because now you're so stressed about what to eat, what not to eat, that like your body's gonna flare anyway. So you're not getting the true of what's happening. So I love that so much. Christina, I do have a question for you.
What's up?
What does it look like for somebody who's like, okay, I think I'm ready to start this process? What does your program entail? Like what would they be signing up for, and what is the cost, if you don't mind sharing it with us?
Yeah, so I do nutrition consults, and the way that I do it is like I just do one call. Like it's a pretty comprehensive call. I don't do packages because some people can afford them and some people it's overwhelming to like have to sign up for 3 months with me. So what I like to do is the initial consult, you'll get a link, you'll schedule your date, you get a link to like there's a lot of intake paperwork, which is like a medical history, talk a lot about what your diet, sleep, lifestyle, your activity level, your stress level. So there's a bunch of questionnaires. There's just one questionnaire, which is like a big multiple choice, which the multiple choice questionnaire is, it's a tool that we use that's every question is a symptom that pertains to a different system in the body. So there's like a little algorithm that like what it does after all the questions is it tells me if your digestive system or your hormones or your gut are, need a little more extra help. So it's not really a diagnostic tool, but it just gives me a better picture of where you need support. I go over your paperwork and I start kind of create a framework of what we're going to do during our 1 hour call when we Zoom like this. We go over everything. I ask a ton of questions, a lot about like, how's your HS? Where's your flaring? Where do you like to eat? I always ask my clients, what are your favorite restaurants that you'd like to eat? Send me those menus. I'm going to go over them with you. And we're going to look at like maybe some options that would work for you because I want people to be able to like still eat where they like to eat, and like the food. I always tell people I information dump a little bit. If you know me, you know that that's like very hard for the course. So I always tell people like if I'm talking too much, just if I'm like it's too much, let me know and I can slow down. And I always send people a 4-phase plan. So essentially, like you said, a little bit at a time. So it's always phase 1, we're doing this. Phase 2, we're doing this. Phase 3, we're doing this. Phase 4, and they have email support. If at any point they want to jump on another call, they're welcome to book one. But it's always incremental, and I always honestly the call notes are like you get like a 15-page like bunch of I give you a lot of information. It's a lot. And I give people usually whether it's like meal plans or any ebooks that they need or any of my resources, I'll include those as well. So that's everything that you get. And the consult is 180. And it's just and it's just a one time. I know it's
soon.
a 1,000,000% lower than market, but again, I feel passionate about helping people. And again, most people, I usually get follow-up calls from my clients who need to troubleshoot like every 3 months or 6 months in, but a lot of people or just email me and we just email back and forth and I don't charge for the email follow-ups. Um, but some of my I would say like favorite testimonials to share is one of my clients who she was on Remicade and she had been on it for a while and like she had seen some improvement with it, but she still wasn't where she wanted to. And when she came to me, she's like, I've been dairy free for a while and mostly gluten free, and I can't do avocados. I learned on my own that those foods don't work with me, but I'm still flaring quite a bit, although I don't have these things in my diet. So when I went through her paperwork and we started talking, I'm like, girl, you got like blood sugar dysregulation. And so we really just focused on that, on like more protein, complex carbohydrates, or pairing her carbs, like her fruit with a protein instead of, that kind of thing. And we had 2 follow-up calls. And at the 9-month mark, we had a call and she was going the month without flaring, where instead of like at the end before her infusion, she'd flare a lot. She was getting to the point where she was about to ask her doctor to extend it. So every 6 weeks instead of every 4 weeks. And she no longer had to take a second blouse to work because she wasn't bleeding through her shirts at work anymore.
Oh, that's just
Oh,
such a win.
Such a win. And also like, but 9 months, I'm like, 9 months she put in the work,
Yeah.
and this is significant improvement. But was she like, oh my God, in remission? No. And I also tell people it takes a long time. It took me 2 years, but I like the way she was going, I was like, you know, like, hey, and very unfortunate. She actually passed away, something unrelated, which is really, really sad. I know her like family reached out to me on TikTok, but and I think of her often because I'm like, oh, she was doing so good,
mhm.
But yeah, so it's really incredible the things that you can do. I had another client then who we started working together a week. She texted me a week later and she's like, holy shit, my flares are gone. And even like my scars went from like purple to like lighter color. And I'm like, that's wild. Like, damn, that's fast. You're lucky, but everybody's different, and everyone has a different approach, right? For this other person, we did find out they had some trigger foods, and we removed those and added more nutrient density. I had another client who had a lot of disordered eating patterns, and we could not do any elimination. And she's Middle Eastern, right? She lives like over there. So she's like, we eat bread with everything. And labna, like the dairy is part of my culture. And I'm like, okay. So we just did supplement support. And she saw a 35% reduction in symptoms just with supplement support, and being able to keep her diet as is.
That's so awesome. You're literally doing like God's work. And I think it's very special because you are a HS patient and you have your own testimony and you have it down to where you're not shaming other people that you're
Mhm.
working with, and all of these critical parts to not do, to not go too fast, to not promise, to not say because it worked for me, it's going to work for you. And just catering and personalizing that to each person's needs, I think is really special. And I'm just really proud of you for using your
Thank you.
testimony and turning that into purpose work and still get in the bag to be outside the community. Like, to be a private chef and take something like you turned your pain into power. And I think that's really inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, and even my private chef was like my client home in his house right now. Like he has Crohn's, like pretty severe Crohn's, and so he has a very specific diet. And it's cool that I have this skill set to the point where he's hiring like celebrity private chefs for me to train. I didn't even go to culinary school, Like this is all just like self-taught, but it's cool when you get to help people. And there's other people, and I will say this because again, not just all sharing success stories because the good and the bad is important. There's people that I haven't been able to help. Like I had a client who I was like, I realized that the healing that needed to happen wasn't with food. I mean, it was with her relationship with food, but it was more,
Mhm.
and referred them to other practitioners, because I'm just like, I want to help you and I have hope for you, but I'm not the person to help you.
Mhm.
And we're still in touch and I get updates from them and they're great, but I'm not a therapist and like I'm not like I don't it's out of my wheelhouse. It's out of my wheelhouse, and that's okay too. I think it's important to know those limitations as well.
Yes, absolutely. Because that's how you help people get the help that they need,
Yeah.
is by acknowledging that and saying like, okay, this is bigger than me. I
Right.
can help support you with this part, but we need to get this part fixed first.
Yep.
And then come back to me and then let's take a look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People with anxiety and HS, like people with severe anxiety, it's really difficult because if you can't regulate your nervous system, diet's not going to have a huge impact. Dietary changes aren't going to have a huge impact with reducing inflammation because your nervous system's still popping off. And that's not something diet can fix. Like, and that's where you need, like, again, in mental health, and I know you do a lot of work for that, like, you know, advocacy for mental health and HS as well, because that's a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
So
Every
good.
time we talk to you, I feel like I learn more and
Yeah.
I love your approach even more. And yeah, amazing. Thank you so, so much for joining us.
So fun to hang out.
Thanks again. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Super Divas.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
guys.